As you're coming in, guys, if you can go ahead and share this in some groups.
So I'm going to introduce our panelists now. Then I'm going to introduce myself and tell you a little bit about what my involvement with the Standing Rock Resistance has been and why we have this in Florida right now, why we have Florida Indigenous in the room. And then we're going to have each one of our honored guests speak. After that, we're going to open up the floor to questions pretty immediately. So without going any further, Bobby C. Billy is Seminole. He is the spiritual and clan leader of the Miccosukee and Seminole here in Florida. I'm very honored to have you with us. Betty Osceola is from the Miccosukee tribe. She's an environmental activist and an elder. She's here in the Everglades, in Miami-Dade County, works in South Florida. Isaac and Manape both came down from Standing Rock. They are from the Osheti-Chacon. Isaac Weston is Ogallala Sioux, and he's from South Dakota. And Manape Lemaire, he's Dakota and Winnebago. Is that right, Manape? Ho-Chunk. And he's from Nebraska. And last we have Sherry Lewis Green. She is Indigenous, Navajo, and Apache. And Sherry used to live in Florida. She now lives in Colorado, but you'll find out a little more about what she's leading here in Florida, which is quite exciting for the room tonight, I think. So these are our guests, and can we just applaud that they have our So my name is Dr. Jennifer Veilleux. I am a postdoc with the School for International and Public Affairs. I am a research affiliate with the Institute for Water and the Environment, and my profession is a geographer, but I specialize on international rivers. And when I saw the situation happening at Standing Rock, I looked at the Missouri River and thought, this is an international river because it crosses sovereign territory as well as U.S. states. So I decided to put a package together of data. I had heard at the time that Obama called for data in a pause in construction of DAPL, and this was September of 2016. And went up to the Standing Rock camps and offered this sort of model of looking at the watershed of the Missouri River from a perspective of water security, human security, what was the pipeline threatening in actuality in a macro scope. And when I met with the tribes there, they were happy to hear this data was generated, and they asked me to return on a subsequent trip to meet with the federal government in government-to-government meetings with the tribes and the feds. And since then, I've gotten very involved with generating data and turning from a scientist being objective and standing back into more of an advocate. So part of this story is how can, there's going to be a question at some point, how can I be involved? Maybe you've already figured out some ways, but for those of you who aren't involved yet and want to be more involved, sometimes it's just looking at what your own skill set is and figuring out how you can apply that in a way that's helpful and beneficial to other people in a humble way. So I'm going to let each panelist introduce themselves now and speak to you a little about where they come from and why they've come to the panel tonight. The title of the panel is Standing Rock, the Way Forward. As you know, up in the Dakotas, the situation has changed pretty dramatically in the camps. We have, the two headsmen here who were the headsmen in Osheti-Chacon, the Seven Council Fires Horn Camp, and they can tell you more about the details of what's going on now. But things have changed. But the sacred fires were put out, but the the spark has gone in the 4 directions. And so part of that is why we're talking about Florida now, because we are starting a Standing Rock, Florida camp. So that has been an interesting journey, and some of my colleagues here have been quite patient with me as I've been absent for the last few days because we've been driving all over the state of Florida together. But I'm going to sit down now and I'm going to let our guest speak.
government charge Isaac Western machapi na ugala matahana wana mini luzana otoa he alwati inawa ki Gilbertt chiapi na atewa ki Ernest Weston Senior chiapi chimshi wanji wichabu ha Dawson Weston Ichiapi relatives, I just want to greet y'all with a kind, warm heart shake. And my name's Isaac Weston, and my Lakota name is Eagle Man. And I come from the Oglala people, the Oglala lands, the Lakota lands there in the plains area. And my mother is Gilbertt, and my father is Ernest Weston Senior, and I have one son, and his name is Dawson Weston. And I thank you guys for welcoming us here to your school. And my involvement was seeing the Keystone KXL in the beginning a few years ago, and I was in school and I was learning how to be a language revivalist, and I was going to be a language warrior and help revitalize my Lakota language, because that's right now it's diminishing right now, and it's in a fragile state, and it is on the verge of being lost. So in my life, that was my purpose, and to learn my language and to teach it to the younger generations. And whenever the Keystone KXL was going on, I was in school and I didn't know how to be involved, so I just kept going to school, and I finished my schooling, and I got a bachelor's degree in Lakota studies and a certificate to teach Lakota language to the younger generations. And so I left it at that, and I finished school, and I had some things happen to me and some difficulties in my life, and I kept walking, kept putting one foot in front of the other, and I kept moving forward. And I was walking blind, though. I was walking with my hand over my eyes, and I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know what I was going to do yet. I had my degree, but I wasn't ready to be a teacher and instructor. And the youth, we call them the 7th generation because that's what they are. And myself, I'm a 6th generation from Red Cloud. Many of you know who Chief Red Cloud was, and I'm 6 generations from him. He was my grandfather. And whenever the youth started to run, it sparked something. I was like, this is big, If it isn't our generation stepping up, then what's no better than the youth? The youth has the voice, and in our language that a child, they have no voice. A child is someone with no voice yet. We chasha, a man, and a woman, across the country. They ran to Omaha from North Dakota, and they ran from North Dakota all the way to Washington D.C. And it opened my eyes to see that our seventh generation, these younger kids, to endure running across the country. My people, we were great runners. We used to run with the buffalo. We couldn't outrun a horse. Our ancestors, I can't, but it's we was always mobile and we was nomadic. We was very nomadic, and nomadic doesn't mean we're walking around aimlessly. We knew where we was going. We followed the buffalo. We followed the stars, and the buffalo was our source of food. So to see these kids just young, it opened my mind. Like, they're firing me up. Like, this is it. This is the call. This is the awakening. So I started to ask around how I could help, and they asked for a song. So I composed a song for the Sacred Stone Camp and for this time in life. Because as a Lakota person, as a Lakota, Dakota, and Nakota person, we're very, we like to tell stories through music and through songs. And that is how we kept a lot of history, was through songs. And so whenever they asked me, I felt honored, and they said, make it in prayer. So I was like, all right. So, I prayed about it. I prayed about it, and I finally, that tune came to me, and so I kept singing the tune, and finally I started to figure out the message I wanted to sing, and that the song I made, it translates to the protectors of the earth, take courage, the future generations that are depending on you, take stand for Uchimaka, the earth, and take stand for our first medicine, which is the water. And so I gave it to the Sacred Stone Camp, and I left it at that. And I continue living in my house, and I was taking care of my other half, and she was carrying my son. My son's going to be 8 months this month, and he lived with me on camp, and he lived with me in my teepee, and it was beautiful to watch him grow in that state to where he can live in a teepee, just at a young age, just as a little baby. But he loved the scenery of the teepee. He loved the fire, and so it made me happy. And then so I left it at that. I didn't get involved until the Sacred Stone Camp put out the call. They called for warriors. They called for sash bearers and lance carriers. And this was in July 2016. And that was me. That was everything they called for. That was me. I'm a Pokala, and in that it's a warrior society in my Lakota people. It's one of the most prestigious warrior societies, and I carry one of the highest items for that society, and I'm an officer for that society. And so whenever they made that call, I knew that that was me. I knew who exactly they were talking to. So I stepped up, and I went to the Sacred Stone Camp, and I talked with them, and the youth just got back from running from Washington D.C. So I sang them the song that I made, and I prayed with them, and after that, then they said, we'll call you back. So I went home and I took care of business, but as soon as I went home, they already made the call. They said 48 hours they're going to start drilling. So I packed up my clothes, whatever little clothes I had. I didn't grab everything. I didn't think I was going to be there for as long as I planned to be. I only thought it was going to be we're going to go go stop this, and then we're gonna go back home, and that was gonna be the end of it. I didn't know we was gonna go through all this stress, all this trouble, this hardship, and this trauma. No, I didn't think of any of that. I didn't think it was gonna be there for months into the winter and enduring the Arctic cold. You know, and at one point it was 50 below. And, you know, so I didn't think any of that. I just knew that this was my call, and because of that, seventh generation, because of their prayers, carrying it all the way across this continent, carrying it all the way across to tell the world that it's time to wake up. It's time to step up for your waters and protect your waters. You know, we have waters all over this planet that are being attacked. And I know you love water. All this water here. You know, you love water just as much as me. In my Lakota culture, we have ceremonies where we give up the water. We give up the water and we talk to God. We talk to God until we're almost ready to die. But it's through prayer. And we're making that sacrifice, giving up the one thing that gives you life and the one thing that makes you continue to live and breathe, sleep and wake up. Everything you would love to do in life, this water has that power to keep you going. And so I knew that call, and I knew exactly what there was calling for. So I packed up my clothes and I grabbed a couple of my brothers and we went to camp. And you know, I was one of the first arrested in the camp. And at that time there was only 40 people there, and we did our best, and slowly, hundreds started to come, and pretty soon, by Labor Day weekend, we had 12,000 people there. Thanksgiving, we had it up to almost 20,000. December 4th, we had 20,000 there, 21,000 people there in camp, and I really didn't think it was going to turn out to be like this. Just that group of people that I met there, my first day living there, I thought that was going to be it. I thought those are only the people who answered the call. And as time went on, then you see all these warriors coming in, all these people who share the same water as we do. All these people downriver, they came up to come support. All these people all the way across, east, west, north, and south. From all four corners, they came. And these prophecies, all these prophecies were coming to that exact spot. Prophecies about this exact camp was happening right there, right before our eyes. All these beautiful things, all this, the prayer was powerful. You can feel it miles away. You'll be driving and you can feel some electrical charge go through your body. As soon as you come up over that hill and you see the camp, see how big it was, how beautiful it was, it just made you feel good, and you knew that that's where you were supposed to be. That's the exact spot you were supposed to be. And I'm so glad that I've got to meet so many people. I'm glad that I've got to make so many brothers and sisters and meet people from all across the world to come support our prayer, come support water, because we need each other. Water is life. And there's people still there at camp, and they're still adjusting to what the Trump administration did to us. We won. We won. The prayer that was made was to get a full EIS, the environmental impact statement. That was the prayer to get that, and we got it. But Trump, he took it. He took it from us and just brushed us under the rug. I didn't hear nothing. There's people protesting over there. I didn't hear that. No, I didn't get one phone call. What was we doing? Why did we get shot? Why did we get mazed? Why did we get hit with concussion grenades? Why did we get sprayed with water cannons? what was we doing then? Where was he at? You know? And it's hard, but I know my brothers and sisters are still there. They're still gonna be there, no matter what. They're always gonna be there. And that's just a little bit about my little small overview of it, and just to give you just that much. And we can talk some more, but I want to keep it going right now. I'll talk on that. I'll talk for 5 hours if I want. I got big lungs. I want to keep it going here. So, those are just a little bit of my experiences there. Thank you.
I'll use up the other 4 hours and 50 minutes. I'm a Takiapi, my relatives, Kichita Hokshida, Imachiapi. My name is Soldier Boy. I'm Dakota, Nakota, and Ho-Chunk. And I'm also a government representative of the Sioux Nation of Indians. And so I'm sovereign myself. I've given up my U.S. citizenship and my Social Security and my tribal enrollment. So that way I don't have state or federal jurisdictions looming over me. So I put myself back to where my ancestors were. I've been involved with this battle since even kind of before the runs, but where I really started taking a more active role was with the runs with the youth. I'm one of the original coordinators to get the kids from Sacred Stone to the Army Corps office in Omaha. And I even housed them at my house for a few nights. And at that time, I mean, I've given up my lifestyle in a lot of ways. I've given up my U.S. citizenship for this fight. And, but my previous life was, I worked in the tribal courts working with youth, troubled youth that would get in trouble, in a program called Traditional Wellness Court. And when the kids got to Nebraska and I had them staying in my house, I had youth from my program come and sit with these kids, because one of the things that I noticed was that the kids on the Winnebago reservation where I was living, and the kids there, of course, they're the same. They get the same issues kind of going on. And so I wanted the kids that I worked with to just sit down and listen or communicate with these kids that were running. Some of them were in their early 20s, and some of them were still in high school. And the schools seen what they were trying to do, so they gave them that time to go do that. You know, but so much love to the school systems that allow those kids to be gone for that long and make those sacrifices. But I sat back and I was listening to these kids, and they were lost. They were lost in life, and just they were looking for something. And this is very intimate stuff, you know. But so I'm not just going to be telling everybody that, but there's a couple of young ones here tonight, so I wanted to acknowledge them and share this with them. These young ones were lost, and but they knew they had to do something. And it's really simple. It's really simple. That's our water, you know. And as adults, I think we complicate things so much. Because I've heard it from other people. Well, we know we need oil too, though. You know, I got to get to work, and our grocery stores, they need produce, so we can go and have those. I get all of that. You know, I understand it. But these kids drew a line. These kids drew a line, and it was a really powerful moment for some of our kids that were having trouble to see kids putting one foot in front of the other. You know, and I think out of that whole trip, it was powerful hearing them talk about the start of their trip. But man, these kids broke down when they got to the outskirts of Omaha. Because that day, they were gonna run from the outskirts to downtown, and we were gonna meet the colonel of the Army Corps of Engineers, and we were gonna present the tribal resolutions from all the reservations along the Missouri, and other resolutions too. We were gonna present petitions that we had gathered, and the people over pipelines and Indigenous Environmental Network had gathered those. And then we had allies from Bold, Nebraska, that helped stop the Keystone XL pipeline and formulated the Cowboy Indian Alliance. We had people from Bold, Iowa, who was trying to stop these pipelines on the non-native side because they were doing eminent domain. We're gonna run it through your land whether you like it or not. Either take the money or we're gonna take the land. That's how it is. It sounds real familiar to me, right? So I say, welcome to America, Iowa. Welcome to the reservation. I mean, welcome to the reservation, Iowa. Now you know what it feels like to be an Indian. We're gonna run it through whether you like it or not. We're gonna take your land whether you like it or not. So we received petitions from Bold, Iowa, and our friends and allies over there that were battling the eminent domain. They were also trying to battle the water. And so all of us all met up at a gas station on the north side of Omaha. We ran those kids down there, and Colonel wasn't even there. He had sent the next in command to greet us, and he just stood there. I shook his hand. I was cordial with him, and there were some other people that were there with the Army Corps that received these things, but there was no emotion. It was just like, well, my boss said I had to kind of be here, so, okay, thank you. Shake my hand. But we expressed ourselves, and I warned him. I said, don't make me have to come back here. And we went about our business, and I had to get back to work, and that's when the kids said, all right, we're running to DC. And but I want to tell you this, that every stop along the way on these reservations that we came through, kids came and ran with us. And not just kids, other people that believed in what those kids were saying and doing. It was like they were honoring the kids, but they were honoring the water and what they wanted to do. And people come out. And there was a lot of us that showed up that ran with those kids. I didn't run, I drove my truck. But I've been on what I call the no dapple diet, so I've lost 30 pounds. So I was 30 pounds heavier back then. So. but it turned into the DC run and the publicity. You know, just a couple famous people had jumped on board and helped get the word out. And in the meantime, the camps were kind of growing, but also you had cities. You had whole cities like Minnesota, Portland, cities way off. Like, well, St. Louis, and you know, like Minnesota's a ways away from the Missouri, and Portland's a ways away from the Missouri. But they had sent their city resolutions in opposition, and they were sending those to the Army Corps of Engineers. So you had whole city councils of massive cities that were saying, you know what, we love water too, and we believe in what you're doing. And they wanted the Army Corps to know that they were in opposition to the way they were doing it. And if you don't know how they were doing it, what they did was they found a loophole. And what they did is they broke if the pipeline's going to cross state lines, then you need to have an environmental impact statement from the federal government. And what they had done is they had broken that construction up into the states, right? And a lot of people don't know this, but the Keystone, the oil field up in Canada added a little spur, which made it the fifth part of the construction, which basically was kind of turning this into potentially Keystone XL 2, right? Different oil was going to be pumped into this from the back in oil fields and the tar sands. Two types of oil, but they did add their little spur up in Canada onto the northern part of this. So, but now the Keystone XL thing is being initiated too. So, anyways, just throughout this whole movement, it started growing, and throughout this whole thing, we've always been in consultation with our spiritual advisors and our ancestors. You know, we're fortunate to be able to communicate directly with our ancestors and with the Creator. And maybe some of you might not really understand that, but it's a very physical thing to be in physical contact with these things, and to know and understand the relationship that we have to have with the land and the water. If people are going to be in opposition to that, we have no choice but to stand up for that. If you don't think water is sacred, or that this land is special, then you're lost too. But I'll tell you what, even these kids understood that. These kids understood that. And our people have been battling this stuff. Uranium mines for your power plants, and the poisoning of our people. Right down the road is Bullhead, South Dakota. The whole community of Bullhead is contaminated. The babies were being born with defects because their mother was drinking the water from the well, and they were being breastfed, or they were drinking while they were pregnant, and the babies come out deformed because of the uranium companies were dumping the water from the uranium mines into their water system. And that's happened on several reservations. Trump said that they were going to start using American iron to start building these pipelines. Where do you think they're going to get the iron from? Not from your neighborhood. They're going to get it from the mountains, usually, most likely from Indian reservations who have been battling to protect what they do have left. Trump wants to go in there and take it, right? So, anyways, to get back on track, just a little timeline thing here. Back in November, I remember my boss, October, I remember my boss, September and October, my boss was like, look, you quit posting videos while you're at work, just be careful. And because they knew what I was invested in, and it just kind of kept growing and growing, and at about October, I was like, oh man, you know what, I'm gonna have to quit my job. I'm gonna have to quit my job because I was being relied upon more. And many of us that have been involved in the very beginning we're realizing that. Like, I'm getting there to where I'm gonna end up having to, I gotta make a choice, you know. It was really hard for me, and actually, I made my boss and my boss's boss cry because I was leaving my job. And I made those sacrifices, and I ended up moving up there. And what had happened was one of our close friends and one of the headsmen, Dallas Goldtooth, had asked me to be there as his proctor, and then later, after a very short time, it was, okay, you're not going to be the proctor, you're going to be one of the headsmen. And what we did is, the spirits had asked us to establish what we call the horn. And the horn, the camp was named, originally it was called Red Warrior. And it was funny, we were retelling the story about it, how it became named Red Warrior, and then how it changed to Ocheti Shakoi. Ocheti Shakoi is the traditional form of governance of the Dakota, Nakota, and Lakota people. And there's hereditary bloodlines of chiefs that those have been handed down. And so we held space for those chiefs. But at the same time, those chiefs had said, you know, it's time for our younger generation to step up. And it's hard for them to turn to some of their sons or nephews and say, okay, this is your place, you take it. Because we didn't have time. It was like, okay, we need to establish this now. Who amongst you is going to do this? And people were pointed out, said, okay, you're going to do this and you're going to do this. So I never asked this. Some people would try to label us as self-appointed headsmen or chiefs, but we're not. We were called upon, and the space needed filled. And when we were called upon, we stood up. We were given the opportunity to step back, but we all stood there together. in the horn. It's a kind of a circle, but basically, the last time the horn was established physically as teepees was in 1845. So even our elders that we were turning to for guidance couldn't really, they could a little bit, but they said, well, we weren't even alive back then, so there's no blueprint for this. And even their grandparents weren't even alive. You know, so we literally had to resort to the ancestors that would come into the ceremonies that were alive, and we're talking spirits that were walking this earth, you know, a couple thousand years ago, that still love and care for us, and that want to see us successful. And so we tuned into those things, and it's and so the hard part was that in camp there were so many, there's high turnover rate. Some people would come for the weekend. A lot of people would come in, dropping off donations, stay for the weekend, and they'd head out. And then they might participate in actions or prayers and things like that. But man, it was powerful to be the leader of 1,000 people one week and then 20,000 people the next week. And then some people didn't even know who the leadership was. And that's how big the influx was, where who's in charge? I don't even know. I'm just, I've only been here a couple. It's so big in such a small area that, it's hard to keep track of who's who and things. So it was tough. It was really tough. And we did the best we could. And we have a lot of victories. And we've actually saved lives in those camps, because once winter hit, it's deadly up there. If you're not prepared and you don't know what you're doing, that's why we put the call out for elders and young ones to go home, because this winter is going to be hard. And we've had situations arise in the community that were very hard things to sort out. So we made a lot of enemies that way. We made a lot of people in opposition, because this is a leadership role. In any leadership role, not everybody's going to like you, but choices had to be made. And at the same time, we're trying to fight this pipeline, and we're trying to maintain and protect the prayer. And so sometimes we had to get up and get in front of people to keep them from creating havoc. And all of a sudden we're the enemy, right? So our obligation, our lifetime obligation now is to protect that prayer. And the commitments we made, that is for a lifetime now. And so because we promised to God, kind of like marriage, we promised to God, right? And so those are things that we're dealing with. We're young, and the elders called upon us to do this because they couldn't be there all the time. And through all these hardships, it was kind of like they were kind of like, oh, welcome to the club, welcome to the club. So we come down here to support our relatives down here that have the same feeling and the same connection to the land and water. And we want to make sure that we support, and I know that prayers were sent up our way. And so we wanted to make sure that we come down and encourage the Miccosukee and the Seminole and the people of Florida that you're going to have to stand up for this, because if you don't, they're going to run more pipelines. They don't care. They care about this. And you can't eat this. You can't drink this. It's not going to happen. And you ask these young ones, they'll tell you real simple. There's no politics. It's really super simple. You have to protect your water, because we've always been the coal miner's canary. And what happens to us is going to happen to you. And so now it's happening to you, and you don't even know it. Well, I like power in my I like my refrigerator, and I like the AC in my car, or whatever your justification is for them to run this pipeline down to this power plant. You're gonna regret it. You're gonna regret it. You're gonna wish that you stepped forward. You're gonna wish that, because I told those kids that. How do you think you would feel if you were still in Standing Rock, wondering, dang man, we should have did something. We should have went on that run, or man, I had this feeling that we should do something, but how do you think it would be? And one of those kids said, I'd probably kill myself. Right? How do you feel now? I feel like I could do anything. That's hope. These kids did that. You know, it's a no-brainer. Little kids can do it. You can do it. And so that's what we're talking about here. Hope. No-brainer stuff here. And I hope that the rest of the community and what we want to initiate is that how all this started was with prayer. It was with prayer. You know, I hear there's camps up there that are trying to really raise hell, but we know that that's not all. We're going to have to take this into the spiritual pieces and reawaken those things and educate people that need that education, and we need that hope for our children. You know, these kids had never, some of these kids that went on the run never been in a sweat lodge before, and they were raised around it. And their first time in a sweat was when maybe they come through Santee or Winnebago or wherever, and somebody from that tribe said, "You guys want to sweat?" Sure. It was their first time going into a sweat lodge, but they started that run too. You know, so that's what this is all about. This awakening isn't just about just stopping the pipeline. There's a spiritual piece to this, and that's where you'll find your answers. And it might raise more questions, but that's okay, because we might need to have another ceremony, right? Or maybe we might find it in our actions, meeting God halfway with those prayers. So that's where we've gotten to, you know, and we had our prayers answered, you know, and then we were cheated. We were cheated of that. Now, the day Trump signed that memorandum. We call it executive order, but it was a memorandum because he still has things that he has to follow. There's a process. But in that memorandum, he signed that. He said, Dakota Access is going through. The second piece that he signed was streamlining EPA regulations that keep these things in check. And what he did was basically, he said, yeah, if the Army Corps gives the green light, it's going through. If you love the Everglades, if you love the beach, if you love anything to do with what makes Florida beautiful, because I did a tour today of it. Just a very small thing. I don't even live here. It was a very fleeting moment in Florida. And if you don't have, I could show you places up in North Dakota where they drilled and it's done. There ain't no wheat, ain't no nothing gonna grow there, ain't no animal gonna eat there. The family had to up and leave. And they were farmers. And they said, what have we done? You're going to regret it. And they did. And they do. So, we need you. The traditional inhabitants of this area need you to do something. To do something. You know, and that fact that you hear, you're going to be marginalized. What were you doing there? Well, who cares? You know, don't you like your AC on in the summertime? You know, you're going to be marginalized. But if you ain't being marginalized at least once a day, then you're probably not doing enough anyway. So thank you. Thank you for being here. You know, and I really hope that we can all start communicating and networking and setting things in motion. So, talk, yes.
Oppression in our family is still being found. you would go on Ancestry.com. And as I was looking up her ancestry, I started finding out my ancestry and my relatives that were taken off the reservation. We've gone through a series of traumatic events, including suicide. My mother lost her father at a young age, and he was Apache, and the other half is either Mexican, Aztec, or Indian. Then my grandmother is Comanche and Irish, and my father was English. So I had a whole ancestry going on. And my dad's side was all Irish. Anyway, so through my life, I have felt my ancestry calling me. That's been very clear. I wouldn't understand it completely. I still won't. I mean, it's still a journey. It continues and continues. But those pieces led to now, and that awakening. So I'll just share a little bit about how Standing Rock, Florida became and how that vision evolved. So in my first time, I've been to Standing Rock several times and have family there now as well. But my first time to Standing Rock actually began through my Dene mom, who is, her name is Susie Silversmith, and she adopted me into her family almost 2 years ago. And that also happened through more tragedy in our lives. When I went through recent tragedy, I ended up camping. I was brought back to nature. The Creator was bringing me to nature. So my family and I went camping for 3 months in Colorado Springs in the mountains. And I was selling my product in the farmer's market. After this particular tragedy, I mean, some people in my family thought I lost my mind. They said, "Oh my God, she's taking the kids into the woods and in a tent for 3 months and be a gypsy and sell her product in the farmer's market." Well, it ended up being one of the best experiences. And during that time is when I met Susie Silversmith. And I lived in Naples, Florida for almost 13 years. I just moved to Colorado, I would say about 9 months ago. I called back because Susie actually lives there. And being called back there is how I ended up at Standing Rock. Susie is a mind that is part of a documentary that is exposing horrors that happened in the American boarding schools. And this is what my family comes from as well. It was kill the Indian, save the man. Kill the Indian, save the man. Okay, stripping culture. Where you didn't mention it, you didn't talk about it, you were taught to be ashamed of your culture. And so anyway, she was one of 9 that is currently active. She's a part of the task force that's exposing these horrors. And she's about to come out with a documentary as well. One of the things in this documentary is we talk about, and she talks about, is forgiveness and peace. And the reason for that is because some of these things that you're going to learn about are so horrific. You're talking about exhuming bodies from just around from walls, many abuses that took place not only to the boys and the girls, but to the girls and that were on the level of them having babies and them wanting to cover up the babies, so burying the babies. These sorts of things are going to be exposed. So it's very important to talk about forgiveness and keep things in prayer, because we know that if you come at things in any other way, nobody can reflect. With this, in that prayer, in that peace, people can reflect So this being said, I had called Susie one day and said, the Indians are going to start rising by the hundreds and the thousands. And, Susie, you're going to be a part of this. And I talked about a few other people. She says to me, Sherry, I don't have cable in my house. This is how I go. There was very little, there were starting to come out on Facebook, but everybody knows here, hey, I'm not good with social media. That is the truth. Just starting to learn this. But anyway, as I told her this, she said to me, Sherry, you know what's happening? I said, no. She said, we're coming together by the hundreds and thousands. We're starting, to join. And that's how the invitation was handed out to me the first time, because that doctrine, them being a part of the task force, is the reason that the doctrine of Christian discovery was burned on November 3rd in the sacred coals. The invitation was extended to me to go with them, which was a huge honor, being elders and being able to walk with the elders and be smudged with the elders and actually put a piece of the doctrine of Christian discovery into the fire of sacred coals, be dressed in, I wasn't full value, but half the first time in my life, and start really feeling that connection with my ancestry and what this was about and all of this, and the significance of the doctrine of discovery being burned. If you go back, and I'll go back a little bit and explain, there was almost 533 clergy members that came to Standing Rock. 533 years of oppression. So you had Pope that wrote a letter that was read by an Irish Catholic woman. You had every denomination that you can go. And actually the first night that we arrived, and there was like this little gym community center, there was about 400 clergy that night. And a Lakota woman, elder, walked in into the middle of the room. She set her bag down, and she said, we knew you were coming. Okay, this has been prophesized. They knew from, if you look at the wheel, it's, what is it? It's red, black, white, and yellow. It represents all the nations, all the colors. Okay, everyone that I see in here is a different color, different nations. We have a variety of people. Okay. She said, we knew that you would come back here, back to this place, okay, from all over the world, and that all the tribes would come. And the significance of that is when you look at the horrors that happened there 533 years ago, when the settlers came in, number one, they never represented Jesus. There was no Jesus in that. What Jesus was in that? Jesus says faith, hope, love. Love is the greatest of all. Okay? Jesus is love. That's what he represented. That is Christianity is Christianity, little Christ, who acts like that. Okay? You have all of these different denominations that come in that have their rules and their regulations and just all of these different things, right? Going back to the doctrine of Christian discovery and it being burned 533 years later during this time on November 3rd. So the significance was the Pope apologizing for this doctrine, the clergy apologizing for this doctrine, because what that doctrine did was hid the guilt of the colonizers. It hid the guilt of the people that were coming in, okay, basically saying that they had the right to do whatever they wanted because they were Christian. Now, where is the love in that? Okay, there's no love in that. That is so far from love, right? So purposely infecting the people. Why? Why did they do that? Because if you can control the population, then you can control the land. You can take over the land. So what is the Creator showing us right now? He's showing us how important the prayer is that started at Standing Rock. That's why we're starting a prayer camp here. This is a healing prayer camp. This is a camp to come and restore and heal. So through that healing and that connection with Mother Earth, you can keep spreading that. People can keep awakening and keep rising and become educated. And keep growing, because look at these pipelines. Look at them. They're under every major waterway. Okay? The Sable Trail pipeline. There's nothing running through it. There's nothing running through the Dakota Access Pipeline. Why do we need it? Really, there's nothing running through it yet. We do not need it. We do not need it. Nobody even knew that this pipeline was being built. People still, right now, in your backyard, do not know that this pipeline is being built. They have no clue. They built it in the dark on purpose, and the miracle of Standing Rock exposed that. And not only did it expose and bring to light the vulnerability of our planet on such a level, it also exposed all the worldwide pipelines that our contractors are involved with, and like breaking the shores in Ireland right now and in the Caribbean. So you basically see this spread of wanting the same thing, and that's the Creator showing us and rising the Indigenous. That's why 748 tribes came together. Thanksgiving will never be the same. Okay, breaking bread that way. Thanksgiving has been revised, and you see, why is this happening? And why are we doing this Indigenous led? Why is this prayer camp Indigenous led? Why are we bringing that prayer here? Because the Indigenous are already connected with the land. They're already connected with the Creator. Okay, this was their land. It's a genetic DNA that's already there, that's being tapped into, that's being risen out of the Indigenous to be the teachers, to show how to take care of our Mother Earth right now. And not just here, to show that to the rest of the world as well. So this vision goes far, and I truly believe that the Creator would not have brought everybody together if we weren't going to win this battle. But we do need your help, and we do need people to understand what's happening here. And it is important to keep the prayer going. And that's what softens the heart. Prayer is what softens the heart. It's not violence. It's not, acting out and ways of hate and anger, because that does the same thing. It just goes here, okay? But forgiveness is what brings the reflection and what brings the growth. So seeing this, you see the same thing 533 years ago happening right now. Control the water, control the people. Control the water, control the people. It doesn't matter if you're Republican or Democrat. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. That everybody needs water. Everybody, let me tell you, they built this pipeline in such a way and in the dark, okay, that they did it section by section, and the permits that they got, so just think about that, it's all welded together, okay, number one. And they did it section by section. The permits that they got to do that are the same that you would get to put a sprinkler system in your lawn, okay? So people don't realize this. And also, there's so many issues that go into how this pipeline can break, how this pipeline can leak. There's many things I can discuss with that, but we don't even need to get into it, because if you even ask the CEO, okay, or the officials that are backing this and that are running this, ask them what is the probable chance of this pipeline leaking. They can't tell you that it's 100%, that it's not going to break. It's man-made, so it really is time to stand. It really is time to unite. It really is, listen, united can't be divided, okay? It's about difference together. It's about rising together. So, your Republican brother or sister, or Democrat, brother or sister, put your political preferences aside and look at the bigger picture of what's happening right now. continuing that prayer. We're continuing that prayer at Standing Rock Camp, Florida. And I actually, that vision continued. So being at Standing Rock that first time, it was one of the most spiritual experiences that I have ever experienced in my life. And the Creator just kept putting one thing after another on my heart. So when I got back, I wrote a letter to the Miccosukee Tribal Council, and I also wrote it to the Seminole Tribe of Florida. And the Miccosukee responded right away, and reached out to Betty Osceola, and Betty got in contact with me, and we started talking, and it just grew from there. And Betty saw the vision and embraced it, and so did her uncle, Bobby C. Billy, because it was a part of what they already had seen. It's already been seen. It's in our DNA. Okay, it's a rising. It's an awakening that's happening, and these are knowledges that they already knew. But there's so many battles here in Florida. It's not just the pipeline. You have Rogue, which I'm going to let Betty talk a little bit about that. That was a bike path that was going to go, because it was a success. Actually, unanimous decision. What day was that on? The 10th, for it not to go through. But it was basically a bike path going through 80 miles through the Everglades. Okay, for basically, as Betty will refer to it as a Disney. What do we say, Betty? Disneyfication. Yeah, Disneyfication, because of the tourist attraction, and just really just unnecessary, and just more destruction to the land. This is something that she was fighting for 10 years, and thank goodness eyes were opened, and I was so honored to see eyes opened in this hearing that was completed, and it was a unanimous decision not to go through with this 80-mile bike path from Naples to Miami. And but there's many issues that are happening here with our aquifers getting poisoned. You know, and Florida is all water. It's all water. So we feel very honored that the Miccosukee would open up to us, and especially me, with Betty embracing me and teaching me and mentoring me, because it's something that has been missed for a long time, and we just need to rise together. And all of you are welcome to come and visit us at Standing Rock Camp, Florida. Thank you.
I was looking for the mystical woman back there. My name is Betty Osceola. I'm a member of the tribe of Indians. I'm of the Pakistan. My mother was a member of the Seminole Tribe of Florida, and I have relatives that are traditional. And next to me is one of my late mothers, one of her many brothers. And Himeida Ilata Chihicho and Hito Tunde. Yaya Imayan, the Dole Chigan, Yan Ihampatai, Umaki Jai, Ilona High Hamari, Haglo, in an entity, didn't want to from when the Ilamaskani Buznats was a Yolage of Galocha, Ilamaskani Buznats, Yolage Motel. Yaya in an hour with the Yatalaka, Olish, Ashoka, Olik, Ishpatabama, Mumatin Child, the Mahati, the Doatic, Yolage, or when I get to the destination, Yolage Manate. These people, their area, their homeland is being under attack. Their water, their land, their way of life. And it hurts us to see that happen to them. But we know it's going to happen to everybody else. And that we know that we need to come together to rise up to help everyone else, because it's not just them, it's gonna be all of us. And that is what we need to look at. Last year, you know, I saw the postings about what was going on up in their homeland, up in Standing Rock, and I was following it. But, you know, I kept I got this message that, you know, for whatever reason, you know, I talked to the people in my community and to do a donation drive. We started one on Facebook, and I went to the people in my tribe and talked to our tribal leaders to get support from our tribe for what they were going through. And our tribal council put together a letter, and we sent it to Standing Rock, to the tribe, and to the other agencies that the Miccosukee tribe stand in support and solidarity with the people, with the Standing Rock Sioux Nation and the tribes that were trying to protect their lands, and urging the government to give them the whole EIS and to protect and help the treaties that were being broken, that to honor them with our brothers and sisters to the north. And our tribe did that, but that's not enough. They needed support up there, and I kept the main goals that we were trying to get, besides getting water and everything, is something just kept telling me, you know, I had this big fixation about getting firewood, you know, pyromania. But I had to get firewood. I was like, I needed to raise the money to get the firewood, and to get firewood up to Standing Rock, because they needed wood. Something kept telling me they needed wood, and we had to get water. And then we saw in the Facebook post, you know, they took away the big old water containers, but they need water. They're next to water, right? So why did they need water? But we had to get them water and everything. So through that donation drive, the people of Florida, because we can't do this alone, the people of Florida, the donations just started pouring in. And we took we rented a U-Haul, put the donations in there. I took my truck, we had water, we had the firewood. My truck had firewood on it. We had sleeping bags, tents, medical kits, whatever we thought that they could possibly need, we packed that U-Haul. And two gentlemen, one of them works for me, his name is Felix Cortez, and the other gentleman is a photographer, wildlife photographer, John Bob Carlos. And so they went with me. And little did they know we were going to be starved, and, you know, made the drive many hours, and put up with me, because I can be a real taskmaster. When I got my mind set on something, we're going. And they had walked with me 80 miles across the Everglades with a lot of people that are in this room and others out there. So they knew the drill. And so we started going to Standing Rock. Our goal was to get there in 3 days, because we were going to take turns driving. We got 2 vehicles. And little did we know that you know, we started going. We got out of Florida, and we actually followed a hurricane out of Florida. We were going to go in with the wind. Use the elements. And we went up, the hurricane was passing through Florida. We went in August. It was just crossing the state. And the same day it was still crossing the state, we went up behind it. And so we followed the hurricane up out of Florida. We got into Georgia. And we did pretty good. And we stayed in Georgia. And then the next day, that's when Creator had other ideas. We started cutting across to go towards Tennessee to make our way up to go. And the U-Haul got flat tire. So I was driving the U-Haul. And we pulled over and we called for help. 4 hours later, we get back on the road and we're driving. So we're trying to make up that lost time. And we get into about maybe halfway into our journey. And we're like, okay, we're going to get like we get into a hotel about 3 a.m. So we tell the front desk, you know, wake us up at 6 o'clock. So we're going to get 3 hours of sleep. And we're ready to go. So we get up, 6 o'clock, get ready to go. We're going to make an early start. and we were gonna go, and next thing you know, we got another flat tire. And so we wait. We call somebody, and we're waiting around, and John Bob is eating, and then he gets sick. And then the guy comes and changes the tire, and it looks like a brand new tire. So we start going again. And then we get into Iowa, and we get pulled over by a state trooper. I'm like, oh no, we're going to stand the right. So we pull over, and then, and I see him walking up, and I'm like, okay. Normally, if anybody knows me, I carry a knife and all kinds of stuff. When I go somewhere, like, okay, look innocent, right? Looking in the mirror. And so I'm thinking, and he's walking up, and I saw he stopped at the other truck, and I don't know what they're telling him. And he comes up to me, he goes, where are you headed? To his relatives.
We're live.
Oh yeah, where are you going? I said, I'm going to Sioux Falls, South Dakota. And that was my target goal. So I honestly told him where I was my goal was to get to Sioux Falls, and then and continue on after we got a break. So he's looking at me, and he goes, "Are you sure?" I said, "Yeah, I'm going to see relatives, and we're going to get to Sioux Falls, because that was my immediate goal, was to get to Sioux Falls." And he said, "You know why I pulled you over?" I said, "No, sir, I don't." He goes, "Well, your tire's starting to come apart." He said, "No, it almost hit me." So the rubber started peeling off and flew off. So he said, "Why don't you pull up that way and get some help?" So he followed us and then he left us alone. So we called again. By this time, I think U-Haul knew my first name. So we're waiting. And then the two men with me, they're like, "You're not upset?" I'm like, "What?" So what's they gonna do? Because, you need to call these people, and you need to tell them this, and you need to do this. And I'm like, but what's it gonna do? Magically, I'm not gonna get a new tire or a truck. And apparently a creator has other ideas of when we should arrive. Because we thought we should arrive within 3 days. Apparently he has different plans for us. And we get our tire fixed, and we're going again. And we get up into some mountain areas, and that's when we find out the brakes aren't so great. And the lights barely work. And the windshield wipers should have been replaced a long time ago. So we driving 40 miles an hour, creeping through the mountains on a winding road, and fog comes in. And it's a scary thought. As that, and I'm driving in the U-Haul by myself, and they're safely in my brand new truck behind me, driving. And I'm thinking to myself, why is the creator having the tires break? Why am I driving and I can barely see the road? And why am I on this windy road at this time of night? And those thoughts are going through my head, but I'm like, you know what, creator, you're going to get us there. I know you're going to get us there. And I'm praying while I'm driving. But for whatever reason, I have to pass this test is what I'm thinking. That I think our determination to get to where we need to go is he's putting us through that to make sure we really want to get there. And we ended up getting a flat tire again. And we're in this gas station, and we're waiting. And then for whatever reason, we should have been up there by then. We should have been already up to Standing Rock with our supplies, but it put us behind. And that was the day the dogs attacked. And the guys so once we stopped, we checked on Facebook to see what was going on up there while we're going on our way, and checking the weather patterns, and the guys that I were with, these are grown men, but they got children, and I'm a grandmother, and they were crying, watching what is going on, and they felt so helpless that they couldn't be there to help the people that we were going to take that help. And they posted how they felt, and I was there, and they were like, "We should have been there." I said, "Well, for whatever reason, Creator felt that we shouldn't be there when that happened. Maybe he was protecting us from having to go through that. I don't know, but for whatever reason, he didn't want us there when that was actually going on. And we were meant to arrive later." So So all of this was going on, and it was very somber for us, for what happened, to have that, because even though we weren't there, we could feel that pain of what was happening to them. We were still hours away from them, and we could feel the pain that they were going through. That's how traumatic that experience was going on with them, that we could feel it where we were. And so we ended up getting to Standing Rock almost midnight with the U-Haul. But before we got there, we pulled off to the side of the road. And because, just like most reservations, there's no signage, and you have to kind of, been born there and know which tree that you gotta turn at, and, which rock you gotta look for to get there. So we pulled off to the side of the road, and this truck came up. And we see this truck coming and makes a U-turn. And this lady, she goes, "Where are you going?" And you go on the truck car, "Where are you going?" I said, "We're going to we're going to the camp." And her name was Margaret Yates. And she goes, "I'll take you, I'll get you." And I told her, we can't barely see, and I got barely in the brace. So she goes, "You can follow me," we go in. So we followed her and made our way to where Flag Row is, and we stopped. And she went to tell them who we were and what our tribe was. And we had a tribal flag because I secured permission from our tribe to take our flag with us. So we had Margaret, one of the young men got out, and one of the other people there, since I was going to drive in with the truck, got out and carried our flag in front of us to go in. But once you cross that hill, and this was at night, so all the nights and the boom, 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 it was like a heartbeat. You could feel it. It was a very surreal moment, and we recorded it and put it out on Facebook. But to get in, they were asking, "What tribe are you?" And you hear something like, "They're Miccosukee." I'm like, "Ooh, it's gonna be cold," The Florida jokes started coming out. They're gonna be cold. They're from Florida. So anyways, after the heckling from being from Florida, all the greetings that they gave us for coming in with their supplies, and sometimes you don't realize what Creator's purpose is until it happens. Sometimes you know what the purpose is before you start something. But when we got there, one of the we parked. They had us parked and everything. And it's that night. And also when we were getting there, we were actually paralleling some winds that were going to come through, some gusty winds. And we were supposed to take another route. And my two navigators, the men, wouldn't admit that we were going a way that we shouldn't be going, but Creator had his plan that we took a different route, because otherwise we would have went right into those storms that were passing through. So we made our way through a different route, very winding route, to get into Standing Rock. And the next morning, when we got up, one of the camps where the gentleman came to us, they were almost out of their wood for their sacred fire. They were down to their last pieces of wood. And they asked if they could take some of the wood that we brought. And so they could take it. And they had this humongous tent in the back. And he was pointing to where the firewood was going to go. And also the sacred stone camp was to the last of their wood. So we loaded up their trucks for them to take over to Sacred Stone, and we loaded up another truck for them to take it to their fire, to their sacred fire. And, so Creator has a purpose. And I was like, the reason I was so fixated on taking the wood that I was bound and determined to take was because I had to get it there before their fire went out. And so that's He works in mysterious ways, and whether word you have in your language for the Creator, we say the Creator because He gave us life, the breath maker, and it has that purpose. And we were, helped them get the supplies distributed and everything, and we presented our flag to go on Flag Row, and then had to start making our way back. And it took us, that trip took us about a week between the going and the coming back. And then the next time, we're still following and posting and sharing around about what's going on in Standing Rock. But as Sherry alluded to, we still have issues here in Florida that we were working on, that we couldn't leave for too long of a time, because we have our own things that we're trying to defend on, and we have to get back to. And so the next time, one of my aunts wanted to take supplies to Standing Rock. She said, I want to go back, but I need somebody to go with me, and I don't want to go alone on all those roads. And so I said, okay, we're going to do this again. So we start gathering supplies again. And this is around November, getting close to Thanksgiving, so we start getting our supplies. And this time, my son and I, one of my sons, I have 2 boys and 2 girls, one of my sons, I didn't have nobody else to go with me. The aunt that didn't want to go to alone changed her mind, but something said, you still have to go. So my son and I made that journey. And same thing, we didn't get the flat tires this time, but this time we had the fog. When we got into the Georgia area, Tennessee area, and we had to stop early. And I was like, okay, here we go. Yeah, for some reason, we're not supposed to get there until the Creator wants us to get there. And again, it took us about 4 days because of the fog. 2 nights in a row, we got stopped by fog. And we made our way into Standing Rock. We got to the casino. That, when we left Sioux Falls, the last trek all the way up until you get to this casino, it has snow overnight. I never drove in snow, but I've driven in mud. And we drove for about, in 4-wheel drive, 30 miles an hour, going down a road that I don't know how we ever made that 60 miles to get there. We took that back road, the one with a lot of hills and everything, and you couldn't even see the banks. The only thing I was following was a pair of tracks. I think, good thing I'm an Indian, I can follow tracks. Because you couldn't see nothing else, it's all white. But I'm just following tracks. The tracks are on the road. And then I see all these cars in the ditches. I'm like, okay, that's not a good sign. People from here are in the ditch, and we're going. And we make it to the casino, and that was the morning the blizzard was going to hit. So we get to the casino in daylight, and we get a whiteout for 2 days at the casino. For some reason, we're supposed to be at the casino. I'm thinking, okay, we can't go nowhere. And that's where I meet Faith, Spotted Eagle, from one of the elders that has been part of the movement. She's from Sioux Falls, right?
Ancient Sioux.
She's Ancient Sioux. And she's also, my uncle has had conversation with her over the telephone, I think. And so there was that connection there, and then we talked a little bit. And then that's when I was like, okay, why are we here? That's what I'm thinking, why does Creator want us to be in this hotel? And that's when the media started going around with anybody that's trying to go take supplies in, they're going to be stopped. That was that day we were there. But it's like, okay, well, we're Indian, and we want to get the supplies in there, we're going to get them in there. So we ended up taking the supplies, dropping them off, and coming back. That, for me, this second trip was about, because one of my craziness, as my kids call me, a professional protester. And the first time one of my kids have made that long of a journey with me to go somewhere. So for me, that journey was not only taking support of what they needed at Standing Rock, and we took up mostly medical supplies this time, and thermal, what is those things that's supposed to keep you warm, those reflective blankets and gloves and all that kind of stuff, is to open one of my son's eyes as to, what this is all about and helping our brothers and sisters. And in that mind, we have been praying from Florida, sending our prayers up their way. And in that mind, you know, because we could feel everything that is going on with them down here. That's how strong their prayers were going out, and we're sending our prayers to them. And sometimes in the effort, sometimes people feel like they have to be visibly seen doing something to feel like they're doing something. But something as simple as even being at your home and in prayer and sending your prayer in a direction, because you're sending your prayer to the Creator. No matter where you are, He's going to hear you. And sometimes, you know, you don't need to be on TV or on a protest line. You can be just in your living room and sending that prayer. And so all these efforts that you hear people talking about is about unity in whatever form that you can give that help in that unity. You know, no effort is too small. And sometimes people are made to feel like if it isn't grand, it's not enough. But sometimes that one prayer can be more than enough. And that's the reality of what you see going on, because, you know, it started out small, because he thought that was going to be only them, right? And that prayer went out, and next thing you know, it became thousands of people. So movements can happen like that. And for Standing Rock or any other movement that you have going on about water, sometimes people say, you know, it's the water, you know, water is life. And sometimes the meaning of that gets lost in what it means. It becomes a hashtag. And then you see, you know, people say warrior up, and the meaning of that gets lost and it becomes a hashtag. You know, even, you know, Mother Earth becomes a hashtag. And what you see here is that they're trying to tell you it's not a hashtag. It's a way of life, of who you are. It's a way of existing. It's how Indigenous people, it's how we exist. It's who we live and breathe who we are. We're not hashtags. And we're not a fad. You know, we're actual human beings. And that's what, and you're all human beings. You're not that label or that hashtag everybody tries to give you. You're actual human beings that matter. And realizing that you matter and respecting yourself that you matter makes you respect your right to everything else, clean water, clean air, clean environment, because those things are a part of who you are. And it's not, nobody can come to your, I put this on the Facebook. I've learned to love Facebook to get that message out. But in a good way, not to create chaos or whatever, but you can provoke thought. Because nobody can come and fight your battles in your own backyard. Creator, and we say battles, but is it really a battle? Nobody can come and defend your backyard. Creator puts us where we need to be in that point in time, in that space. Because we are the ones that have to take care of that. When you stand up and you're defending the area that Creator put you on, not just defending, but helping nurture it, help providing life. And that is where you need to be. But when you need help, other people will come and help you and stand strong with you. But they can't do it for you. And these efforts that you see is they stood up. It was just a little bit of them. But other people came and stood with them. When we had the walk to stop the River Grass Greenway, and you know, my uncle wasn't 10 years. That ridiculousness was 10 years in the making. But to stopping it, my uncle was at it much longer, and he needed help. And there evolved the walk. And if he was leading and it was just me walking, we were doing this thing. and Shannon in the rear, keeping us going. But we put out the call, and the people came, the first one. And we had, was about 30 to 50 every day. Some were the same people that walked the entire 75 miles that first time, from the west coast to the east coast. And the last 11 miles on rock was the hardest. But they continued, it was a consistent number that many people through that whole time. But they came. And they all said, we don't know what, but we had a year. And they walked. And we walked into the Mississippi Tribes Casino right there. The second year, the same thing, because there was all this media, but people tend to forget when it's not a sensation, right? But still the people that are working on it are still working on it, like they're working on it. Just because there's not all that media hype doesn't mean their tribes gave up. They're still working on it. So the second year, the call goes out. This time we're going in the opposite, because sometimes you got to switch it up a little bit, right? And plus everybody else was like, oh, can we do the hardest part first? You know. So, but little did they know that at the tail end, the Creator had different ideas. You know. So the same thing. The people came. This time we had more young people. First time was more older people. This time the younger generations came. And this time, for whatever reason, the Creator felt that they had to go through the wind, they had to go through the heat, they had to go through the sleet, almost the rain, and they had to go through the exhaustion. But all those efforts in what they're doing and what we did with everybody, because sometimes people want to take credit for what they think only they did, but everybody, because we have people that didn't walk with us also emailing, writing letters, making phone calls, because it takes a united front. Out of a result of all of that, this past Friday, we were able to go before the Cardinal Commission and to get them to withdraw their resolution of support. So that was a big effort in the making to get them to withdraw that resolution of support. Because we didn't agree with the mentality of what they wanted to do, because they didn't understand the importance of protecting our water, protecting the Everglades. And we didn't do it just for our people, it was for everybody. Because the Everglades is important to everyone around the world and all of God's creations, the Creator's creations. But the mentality, and it was said in this meeting, and it just like, I was almost stunned that, gentrification is an inevitability. Like, you gotta gentrify the Everglades? But that was the mentality, and it was like, it shows the disconnect. That's what I'm trying to get out of, because when you go into nature, where these water sources are, wherever you go, nature in itself is so beautiful, it's so eloquent. Why would you need to have to gentrify it? It's magnificent the way it is. It's flawless the way it is. It's man who comes in and creates the bad, who creates the death of the area. You leave nature alone. She's thriving in her elegance, in her magnificence. We're the ones that go and mess it up. And that's what this is all about, is to allow her to be who she is. But for also, by allowing her to be who she is, you're allowing yourself to be who you are, in your eloquence, in your magnificence, in your beauty, if you're in harmony with who she is. And it's when we're not in harmony, is when we're trying to drill for oil, when we're trying to rape the land, trying to fill that hole that we have here. And to reawaken yourself and realign yourself is to heal yourself. And when you heal yourself, you're not going to look for all these other things to make you happy. Because in the pursuit of that happiness, you're destroying all of that. Because if you really think about it, if you're truly happy with who you are, you don't need much to be happy. And that's the message that I get out of Standing Rock, that I get out of what they're doing in Texas, what I get out of what they're doing in Louisiana, what I get what we did with the walk. And it's the message that I get that they want to start with Standing Rock, Florida, is to reawaken everyone to what our original purpose was to be on Mother Earth. Thank you.
Well, I guess I'm gonna have to lie for you all. They say everything, need to say. I guess when I was growing up, I grew up in the woods, and I was born in the woods, and when we were growing up, as get older, we play around longer and longer, and then we run into a highway, but we have no idea what it was, because we never seen a highway. We always head out in the woods, at least about 2 miles out to the highway. So we came back, and we sat around at the village hydrant because we saw some people a different color, different eyes of color, and also working around things and doing all like this, but we had no idea what's going on. First time we see different color of hair or different color of body, and so we ran home. We sat around. When our parents came back and we saw something, but we had no idea what it was. And they said, okay, get in the car. And so we got in the car. They brought us here in Miami, and we found out we wasn't alone. And they told us there's all different kind of people here. But that's the way they taught us. We have to learn our way. We have to learn how to hunt. We have to learn how to protect the natures and respect to live what God has gave us, and He gives you nourishment. So He taught you those kind of things to respect God's gift. And you are created by God. And also He created the earth to us for live on and take care of it, so they can take care of us. So then later on, we get older, we came out to live along the highway. But we're still going back and raising food naturally. But when the park created, early 60s, and I was working with my grandpas and my grandma, and we're cleaning up that hammock, and then we dry the wood, and then we burn it, and we plant corn and all kinds of things. And that's how we live in our way of life. But when they started park, and one of the rangers came out and told us, you cannot do this anymore. And they forced us out of that, our way of life. And that's the hardest mine in my life. I can't forget that. So I still challenge some people in the park, what keep making building up regulations and so forth. It's fine if they regulate themselves, they're the ones destroying it. We didn't destroy our way of life and nature. So since I was born and raised, and non-Indian people abusing us, no matter where we go, we never had peace. As long as I remember it. So when I get old enough to that, because I fall in love with my elders, what they does, protecting their sacredness and what the way of life God has gave it to them. So I learned from them how to live that way. So it gave us the love, protect for all creation. So I think the people, the color of the others, need to learn how to respect themselves, to learn how to what God has gave us the earth, how we need to protect the future generation needs to. But right now, the man and woman attacking our future like they don't need to. Talking about not just the oil and gas, but also cutting down the trees and also cutting down the mountains to create this light. We don't need all these things. We can survive. We did survive. This thing created not too long ago, maybe 150 years or less. But we think, people think we're successful the way we're living, but we're not. We're taking away our life, the future younger generation. We're taking away their way of life. If you have kids, you should thinking about that. They need to think it slow down. Your minds are running crazy right now. You don't even know where you're going or what you're going to be passing on to the next generation. So if you teaching your kids, you need to teach them, take them out there, not bicycle, not swamp buggy, not airplane. They give us the leg and hand what the God has gave us to use. That's how I learn in my way of life, protect my future generations, which is unique. That. So I never went to school. I don't even know how to read and write, but I still happy what I am and who I am. I still speak my language. I still have my ceremonies, and that's my right. That's my gift. That nobody can take that away from me. But when you go to school like that, you lose all your rights, and the papers controlling you. Money things you got to you. You can't survive without the money, the way I see the people's living. They struggle with that, and they think we have to live with money. But you can live without that. We'll live on air and food and water. We can't live on money. Simple as that. But you've been manipulated since you were born. You grow up in a building, inside a building. You were born inside the building. You learn things inside the building. And you go back and forth inside the car. I don't think some of you never touched the earth. So that's why you have no feeling to the earth. So when I grew up, I started putting my shoes. I lost a lot of energy of Mother Earth. So I can see why non-Indian people has no feeling to the Mother Earth. So sometimes you need to take your shoes off, walk on the earth, feel our mother, give the love for our mother, return something back to our mother, because that's what they need from us. Don't keep taking and taking and mine. It's not really yours. You just live on, take care of that. So that's what I like to see you educate yourself that way, so we don't have to challenge you to trying to save your life. But like people trying to stop the pipeline. And also we have it here, but nobody gets up to do anything. I was out there asking for help, yelling at for help. Nobody came. All the pipe laid out already. It's not an oil line, it's a not so-called natural gas pipeline. It's more dangerous than an oil line. but nobody do anything. Your own backyard, right here. They're working on it now, today. They're probably working on it now, because they work 24 hours a day when I was there. So, to me, I'm hopeless what I see today, because nobody sees the future generation, what they're going to be struggle, which is your kids, going to have kids. Think about them. Think about them, what they're going to find way to find the water, clean water. Where they're going to find the food, because population grows, thousands and thousands of people, babies, almost every hour or every minute. The earth's getting smaller and smaller because the population grows. Over here,